I'm Christopher Hine, and today we're going to be talking about Koshi Nage. So Koshi Nage means hip throw, pretty direct translation. My Koshi Nage isn't dramatically different than anyone else's Koshi Nage. I think it's pretty run-of-the-mill. I don't have a lot of great insights to Koshi Nage. It kind of just is what it is. I'm going to share a couple little things that I think maybe I look at a little differently than other people, but really no big difference. Mostly what this video is going to be is I'm going to show you how I get my students into Koshi Nage. And I feel like I have a lot of success with this. When I was learning Koshi Nage, I felt like it was something that for beginners was really difficult to learn. And you know, the students who kind of had experience with other things were able to get Koshi Nage pretty quickly, but students who had no experience with that really seemed to have a difficulty learning Koshi Nage. So over the years, I built a very specific way to get students into Koshi Nage, and I'm going to share that with you today. So if you have trouble with Koshi Nage, this video will probably be a good one for you, and particularly if you have students that you're having a really hard time explaining to them how to get into Koshi Nage, I think the way that I get through it is really straightforward and will kind of help. So I'm going to get Josh out here and we're going to go to work. Josh? All right, let's talk about Koshi Nage. So Koshi Nage means a hip toss in Aikido, or hip projection. In Aikido, it's the throw that I think looks the most like a judo throw. And so I think it's one of the throws that most of the people who are serious about being martial really feel like is a good throw in Aikido. There are a lot of function in understanding this throw, but the time it takes generally to set it up isn't useful for us. And so most of the time when we're doing Koshi Nage, they should kind of just be set up on the fly. So it really doesn't work as well as judo throws for clinch grappling as judo throws do. So if you're going to clinch grapple, there's not a way around it. You can't really master Koshi Nage and then you know as much as a judo guy, you still got to do judo, right? So it's not a lot of what people think it is. And in fact, I think a lot of the time what's kind of happening in Koshi Nage is like, you know, let's just go from showman, just so it's real easy to show. Like, so if I come in and this guy's coming towards me here, that I'm just... Okay, so we just learned that you can't do Koshi Nage very easily with the mic pack on, so I'm going to be gingerly when I do it this time. So when this guy's coming in, a lot of times what's happening is I'm just kind of bumping him off a little bit, and it's not this big dramatic throw. It's like he just kind of hits the edge of my hips. And the reason that happens is because, you know, so Koshi Nage most of the time, and you see it mostly in the forms like this, it's coming because we have a wide situation. There's a few exceptions like a Ryote Dori. There's a couple exceptions to this, but generally we have a wide situation. And so what's happening for the Koshi Nage is as he's pushing into that, I'm coming down low, boom, and catching him right here. And then in that catching, I can kind of just shove him off a little bit, right? Which gives me the ability to escape out of there. So it kind of gives me a little oomph to get out of there. And that's the way I use it most of the time, is just kind of this really simple little pop. In fact, when you see it done in our Jiwaza or Randori, most of the time it really doesn't look like anything other than a little bump and the guy kind of stumbles back and then the other guy can escape. So that's how we use it most of the time. However, I think the full function of learning how it works is really good. It's really good for learning to take body weight, and it's really good for learning to fall and to trust your fall. So a lot of really good stuff comes from that. All right, so I'm going to show you how I would teach a beginner to do this. So, and I'll use Josh because I'm going to mess up my mic pack if I do this wrong. So, okay, what I would have the beginner do is just bend over right in half. So they make this L shape like this, okay? First thing I would do is explain to them that if you resist me and I push high, okay, you feel that in your low back. And if I resist you and you push high now, you feel nothing, right? Okay, so that's real easy for Josh. He could do that all day. Whereas if I push up here and he resists, that's some work for him, right? So, and take that time to explain that if they're sitting right where your belt is on your hips, then actually let me put it this way so it's easy to see. I don't know, maybe I can get it with the other cameras right. If they're right here where your hips are, then you're going to have a lot more stability. Whereas up here, your low back's going to take the work because of the lever of the back. And so I just basically take some time and explain that to them and tell them, you know, when you're putting someone, setting someone up for Koshi Nage, you don't want them up here because it's hard on your back. You want to make sure that they're down here. So that's the first part of it, okay? Next part is I'd have them bend over, and I don't want them to bend their knees or anything else. And then I have their partner just lay across, okay? And then Josh is going to see if there's any way he could pick me up or anything else from this position, right? And he can't nothing, right? My feet are on the ground, okay? Now, I will say when you're doing this, really make sure that the uke, so that's me in this case, resists the urge to load themselves up where they should be, right? So they shouldn't be trying to do that. They should just be flat-footed, and they should lean forward and see if they get up anywhere, right? And they won't. Okay, now next thing you tell them is, okay, now this guy, so what Josh is going to do is he's going to bend his knees so his hips are a little lower than mine, right? So a little lower. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to lean forward, and Josh is going to see if he can get me up at all. Not really too much, right? A little bit, but not too much, okay? So that's the next stage in the progression. And again, from this stage, make sure that this person isn't really trying to jump up on there and set themselves up. All they're doing is leaning forward and seeing where they get, okay? Now, next stage is Josh is going to lean his back towards me like this. So see how he's like tilting his back towards me? So then from this tilting the back on forwards, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to lay forward exactly like I did before, and he's going to twist a little bit. And look, all of a sudden my hips come up really, really nice up off the ground. Okay? And that's because of this progression of ideas. Now, when we teach it to our students, a lot of times we forget all these little things that we know how to do. And so it's kind of hard, and you got to kind of reverse engineer, like, well, how do I get that really nice throw to set up like that? So this is a way that I think is really clear for students. And when you have them like, well, can you get their feet up off the ground easily or not get their feet up off the ground easily? And they kind of see this progression and how, you know, like making sure that their hips are lower, that's one thing they have to do. Making sure they tilt their back towards the other person, that's one thing they have to do. And then rolling over and standing up is one action, that's another thing they have to do. And so I think that breaks it down simple enough for beginners that they can get it. And I've just had a lot of success with this, meaning a lot of times people coming off the street and I can get them doing Koshi Nage day one. So it's a good method in my experience to use. As far as that goes, really there's not that much in-depth crazy stuff about Koshi Nage. It's a hip toss. It looks really big in demonstrations and pretty. In my experience, practically, it almost never comes off like that. Now, I have video, I think I put up not too long ago actually, of me doing it years ago. I did a really nice Koshi Nage on Michael Varon that is not the kind you see in this. So they can totally happen in our Aikido experience, but they don't work best for that, right? In my opinion, most of the time they're just kind of this little boom and they kind of fly off and you get away, which is most of the time what we want them for in Aikido. But I think they're a good practice tool for all the reasons I said, and I think this is a good progression to get through to that. So yeah, I don't have a lot of exciting stuff to say about Koshi Nage. It's a good throw. It's one of the basic throws, and now we're into the less controversial throws. So I'm Chris Frine. Thanks for watching. This is Joshua Teehee, and Maya Solana McDaniel is right there behind that one. We'll see you guys in the next video.